This presentation is an introduction to critical thinking and reflective practice. It has been designed to support your self-directed learning from Session 1 and covers the first section in your Learning and Assessment booklet. The diagram shows the connection and skills required for critical thinking. Critical analysis involves applying rationale and logical reasoning, to situations or texts you read. You then must analyse the problem or situation. To deconstruct is to actively process and apply rationale and logical thinking, which involves not passive acceptance of what you read and hear, but to question and evaluate, make judgments, find connections, and categorise. Therefore, you will be able to evaluate and solve the problem, make decisions. Think of the steps in the implementation of the nursing process: assessment, nursing diagnosis, planning, implementing, and evaluating. You need to be open to other points of view, and you need to avoid being blinded by your own biases. What does this mean for you as a nurse? It is vital that a nurse has a critical thinking approach to the provision of nursing care. This includes more than what the nurse does at the bedside. It is equally important for nurses to critically analyse the information from other sources. Some of these other sources are informal chats with peers and colleagues, reading published works in journals, information you might have gained from internet articles, participation in professional development, like attending conferences, media releases and stories, advertisements and commercials, publications with vested interests, like pharmaceutical companies, and brochures and pamphlets from non-profit organisations. Stop and think for a moment. Do you believe every commercial you see on the television? Do you believe what they're saying is true? Hopefully not. It is your responsibility to think independently and question the credibility of sources. Some of the definitions that are in your workbook will be covered next. Metacognition. Look at the poster on metacognition. Metacognition is thinking about learning or knowing about knowing. Look at the flowchart for metacognition. The first step being the question, what do I have to do? Then, what choices or strategies might I use? The next step is, what choices or strategies will I use? Why did I choose those strategies? Finally, how did it work? What will I keep or change next time? Bias. The dictionary definition states a preference or an inclination, especially one that inhibits impartial judgment. A partiality that prevents objective consideration of an issue or situation. It is vital that nurses maintain unbiased attitudes in the workplace. Differentiate. To be different, to differentiate yourself is to maybe dye your hair green, to be able to tell the difference when making decisions and judgment statements, especially when involved in nursing care situations. Contemporary, a modern view, the way things are done today. Attitudes and treatments change over time due to technological advances and past experience. Holistic. I hope you all have this explanation, as it has been discussed many times since you started. Health for the whole body, including physical, spiritual, and mental health. Detrimental, damaging or harmful. The next section is looking at reflection. Reflection is the hallmark of professional practice. You need to read pages 15 to 17 of your Learning and Assessment booklet. Reflection in practice allows interconnections between abstract theory and concrete experiences, as well as observations, past experiences, and judgment to become accessible to the practitioner when planning nursing care. From a historical perspective, since the 1980s, the development of reflective skills has been widely adopted, especially in best practice professional settings. One of the most important things a nurse can do is look after themselves both physically and psychologically, if they are to care for others effectively. Reflective practice facilitates coping. From a personal perspective, this is different for each of us. It might be done in the form of a daily diary or just a catch-up on the phone with friends. Think about how you personally reflect and make a note of it in your Learning and Assessment booklet on page 18. From a professional perspective, this is usually more structured. Think about your last 2 clinical placements. You've had meetings with your supervisor and have completed your placement logbooks. These are forms of professional reflection. There are 3 types of reflection. Reflection in action, the ability to reflect not only after an event, but during an event or experience. You hear people say, he can think on his feet. This is reflection in action. Structured reflection, systematically working the following steps as appropriate to the situation. What happened? Identifying significant events or incidents. How do you feel? What assumptions, beliefs, customs, or values underlie the event? What were the environmental demands? What are the implications for future practice? What was learned? What could be changed? What concepts or assumptions could be challenged? Think about the responses you might get to these questions and how it might be reflected in future planning and how you think about recent experiences. This is what you are doing when you complete your placement logbooks. Informal reflection. Most of us engage in this type of reflective practice without even thinking or knowing about it. When you go and have a coffee with a friend to talk over your day, you talk to a colleague about a difficult patient or a treatment that isn't working. Thinking over the day's events on the way home. Complete the activity on page 18 in your learning assessment booklet. Now we have had a rushed overview of reflection. Complete the activities in your learning and assessment booklet. These are on page 18 to 20. There will be time in our next classroom session for you to ask any questions. Make sure you jot these down as they occur to you, as the next session isn't for quite some time. There will be a PowerPoint presentation for you to print off, which includes some of this information. You might wish to access this and print it off for your own learning.